Welcome to Season 2 of Rooted and Reaching, a podcast about startups, entrepreneurs, and innovation in the South Bend-Elkhart region of Indiana. I'm Marty Mechtenberg.
And I'm Susan Ford. We're excited to share 16 new stories with you this year. And we're going to get tactical about how entrepreneurs are confronting challenges, building success, and moving our region into the future.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rooted and Reaching. I'm Susan Ford here with Marty Mechtenberg, and together we are interviewing. We have the privilege of talking to Rich Carlton, the president of Aunalytics. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, first question. Why is Aunalytics called Aunalytics?
This is a big one.
It was originally, if you go back to your high school chemistry class, you might get a hint there. AU being the symbol for gold, your data is gold, was some of the original thinking with that. And from that became the name of Aunalytics.
That's awesome. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have lots of questions for you today, and we are really excited. I think our listeners know over the course of this podcast, we've talked to larger, more established companies, startups just getting going, and I think Aunalytics fits very squarely in the more established companies. Mm-hmm. So let's just talk a little bit about Aunalytics, and then we'll get to you. But can you help our listeners understand who Aunalytics is, what it's about, and then we'll poke on what that means for the region?
Sure. What Aunalytics is about is managed IT and managed analytics services. We want to be the primary advisors for IT innovation and analytics strategy using data to help make businesses better. And we do that we have a very, very large proprietary platform that we have built to be able to process millions, and in our cases, billions of rows of data. And we have a very large enterprise cloud that is managed out of South Bend with locations in other parts of the country that our team of technical advisors, business advisors, data scientists, data engineers, infrastructure engineers help utilize technology and data to allow our customers compete in the new global economy.
That's super exciting. I have just a few more and then I'll pass the baton over, Marty.
No, please go right ahead.
But when we think about why this is relevant for our region and the other types of entrepreneurs that could learn something from what you guys have been up to, is there anything specific about our location relative to other big cities that you think is a competitive advantage?
One, I think a willingness to help a company grow, to be honest with you. I will say that from the, and maybe this is a question you're going to get to, but it might be a good time to just hit it, is kind of how we were formed and why we were formed, because it goes right to the region and the community. When we were looking at starting this business, the group of us that had been in businesses together, our CEO, Tracy Graham, and I have been in businesses about 20 plus years together. A group of us had come out of a business that we had been in the infrastructure side. We had data centers where we stored and protected data and help manage that. And as we were looking to restart something, we were trying to talk about what problem were we trying to solve in the region. And there was a couple of them. The first one was we had talent issues. People that were coming to school here were not staying, and people that were growing up here were leaving in technology and not coming back. And we were seeing that in some of the technology departments of some of the companies that were growing up here were moving to other locations. Everybody's a technology company now in some way, shape, or form. And if you can't deliver technology, then you're not going to be competitive. So that was one of the first aha moments.
Can you say that again? Because I think that's super compelling. Just touch on that for another moment. Everybody's a technology company.
Yes, everything. Yes, you can be in manufacturing. Yes, you can be in distribution. Yes, you can be in healthcare. Yes, you can be in banking.
Right.
You're using technology to deliver all of those services in some way, shape, or form. And the ability to utilize them to the most effective way to stay true to your mission and differentiate yourself is how companies are being separated these days. Yeah. So if you're not in tech, you're not really here. So that was one of the revelations. The other one was, and this is in the 2011, 12 timeframe. So 10 plus years ago, we were talking about, okay, great, we're storing and protecting data, but where the world is going is what can I do with this data? And at that point in time, the terminology was around big data. And so, as looking at what you could do, we were at a unique time in our area, as well as we were showing up on a dying cities list, in Newsweek, and there was lots of Innovation Park didn't exist at that point in time. Ignition Park didn't exist at that point in time. But it was a transformational time for the community in that Notre Dame was making some decisions to get way more into research. And with that ability and need to get way more into research, Dr. John Affleck Graves, at that point in time, there was a group of us with the chamber meeting with John, and he was talking about, Notre Dame cannot succeed if South Bend fails. And we need to be good partners with the region and with the community. And boy, did they back that up. And so what was unique about this region, Susan, is that when we were starting this, what does any startup business need? You need capital and you need customers. And we had the idea, could we do both in the same way? And so the view was that if we were going to build something that was focused on these businesses that are in secondary markets like South Bend and tertiary markets, and allowing them to compete in a way with technology and with data that they couldn't otherwise, you couldn't just solve the technology problem. You had to solve the talent problem along with it. And so to do that, it was going to take investment, not only in building our data center and our infrastructure, but really investment in building our platform and learning how to do AI and how to do analytics and those things. And so our pitch became one of to people who had been with us before is, hey, you were a customer before. You created value that, somebody else, is experiencing that's outside of this region now. We believe that we're going to be able to offer something really unique and different. And number one, we're going to work on solving the talent problem to help address your business problems in enterprise IT and technology. But we're going to build a data platform and help you do R&D and grow that way. And so what happened was we had investment then come and commitment come from regional companies like Notre Dame, like First Source, like Corporate Services, like others that the region was one that believed in the opportunity, and we had a great partnership with the city to get it off the ground.
So how did that work exactly, though?
Sure.
Like, were they lined up before you started, like Notre Dame, First Source Bank, the city, or like what came first, the chicken or the egg here?
Yes, yeah, and by that I say yes, in that so what we were talking about is we knew foundationally we needed to build our infrastructure, and that meant we wanted to build a data center. Where we could house our cloud and our services and begin to build our platform and build that out. And so you had a few things going on at the same time. You had conversations, let's just say in the morning, where we're talking to possible investors and saying, this is the vision we have, and we're looking to people to invest.
Yep.
You're having conversations in the afternoon with the city around, hey, is Ignition Park really something that you're committed to? If so, at that point in time, it was just a bunch of empty Studebaker buildings with a sign out front that said nanotechnology. It was, no, are we taking these buildings down? Are you putting roads in? Are you going to deliver utilities? And if so, is this the right spot for everybody? And so, some of those things where when Notre Dame said we're committed to it, and First Source said we're committed to it, then it became something that became real. And working with Mayor Lickey's administration was really good at the time, and getting that done.
So when you were talking to those investors and when you were talking to the city, like you had an answer for them when it came to the customer and the talent. Like you had customers in.
We had a vision.
Lined up. You had a vision. You didn't have customers yet.
We had a vision. So think of this way. What we were talking to is our investors about being the first customers coming in. And so the investors coming in as being the first customers de-risked it a little bit. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is that, so our capital and our customers, we got from the same place. So it de-risked it a little bit. And we had people committed to making the venture successful, because not only were they investors in it, but they were people that were looking at the long term and looking at how this could benefit their business in the region more as a whole.
And that's wonderful.
And so when you say that, what does this region have uniquely, to be able to offer? When you talk region, when you're talking the combination of South Bend and Elkhart, from an entrepreneurialism standpoint, the image that Elkhart has been forever. Restart it, rebuild it again, new entrepreneurs popping up, new brands, new RVs, restart it, resell it, rebuild it again. They go and they go and they go and they go. South Bend had gotten behind in that. Frankly, we had a long time with a very, very large, massive company here in town that why would you go start something? I can go work for that. And I think that the realization of Notre Dame and their connection to the community and them saying, wow, research is something we want to be a part of. Well, research spurns entrepreneurialism. And what you now have is that community connection of, we're not a region that Notre Dame happens to be in. We're a region that Notre Dame is actively involved in from an economic development standpoint. They're actively involved in now with their students. I mean, one of the game changers for us was when Dr. Nitesh Chawla, who leads Notre Dame's Lucy Institute for Data Science, is a partner in the business, and his vision for analytics and the platform that we could do, opened us up to incredible talent, including our chief data scientist Dave Cieslak, a triple domer, undergrad, master's, PhD, data scientists. You weren't finding a lot of those kind of guys willing to stay in South Bend.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been a game changer.
Can you tell us more about that piece? So you mentioned talent early on in this, and that was part of your early conversations. It was a concern, I think, keeping talent in the region. How did those first conversations go? Was it hard to sell somebody on the idea of, hey, why don't you stay here and work for this new local startup?
You know, what was really going on, to be honest with you, is there weren't a lot of, and I won't just use Notre Dame. I'll use students who were going to IU or Purdue in engineering or other places. There weren't a lot of them coming back and interning here. Yeah. So there was a view of the business community, those kids don't want to. And the Notre Dame kids, we're not going to ask them to intern. They don't want to be here. But we weren't giving them a reason to either. Right. We weren't giving them a vision. We weren't giving them the cool opportunities and the benefits of, we're going to give you the opportunity to work in technology and work in it in a way that's connected to a community purpose beyond just a business purpose. We are very passionate about the fact that what we're doing in these secondary and tertiary markets, it's not that we're keeping IT available or we're doing data analytics for a company. We're making sure healthcare can be provided, or banks can give loans, or manufacturers can produce goods that employ people that allow them to take care of their families. And while, Amazon and Microsoft and phenomenal, great companies, and some of them might even end up being in our region. Here's what I do know. None of them are serving on the chamber board. They're not donating coats for kids. They're not involved in the Boys and Girls Club. They're not employing marketing people and accounting people and sales people and others. And so those traditional businesses, the financial institutions, the manufacturers, the RV companies, those people that have made and built our communities and made them great places to live and work and play, we're passionate about being the technology and analytics arm that helps them to continue to do that, because that's what makes the region and the communities a great place.
So the follow-up on that, then, it sounds like you're saying that you had a lot of success recruiting because your vision was such that it brought that kind of talent. It kept that talent in the region.
You know what? An interesting thing for us early on, and you're making me go back now, but there was a time where we were like, well, we don't know if these students who aren't from here are going to care about the story of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, good point,
or that,
good point.
My gosh, where we have built our technology center, that the reason it's a great place to locate our data center there is because we're reusing the power infrastructure that used to produce Studebaker automotive cars. And that's why we have this robust, incredible power infrastructure. Oh, they're not going to care about that. And we quickly found out they did.
Oh, no kidding.
It was more about a connection to the purpose of what I was doing behind it. They could get the bits and bytes anywhere. But it was, if you could create a purpose for them and a reason for them to be involved in something, they wanted to stay. They wanted to be here. They liked things about our town. Yeah. What we found quickly was that there were so many people talking negatively about our town, but you know who wasn't? The people who didn't grow up here. Right. It was they saw our region differently than many of us did. And to me, that's been the biggest transformation of the last 10 years, and where I'm so excited about where we're going is we're starting to think about ourselves differently. We're starting to punch above our weight, and we're starting to get more and more people say, well, why can't we do that here?
Yeah.
Because we can. And I have to quote Simon Sinek, right? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I think it's been really exciting. And just for some quick stats, can you tell people how large Aunalytics is now? Yeah, I had to rattle some of this off, recently for a thing. When we were working through our project in 2012, the hope was that, we're going into Ignition Park, and I had a city council member, Oliver Davis, who was very supportive of us, say last night in a meeting. He said, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, he said it was easy to support Innovation Park right across from Notre Dame. Okay, I think that can work. Right. When we're talking Ignition Park on the south side, is anybody going to come here? Is anybody going to do this? And our initial program was, could we create 15 technology jobs, on that campus? So Aunalytics now we have 240 plus people within our company, and 140 plus of them are in South Bend. About 73% of those are technical. We've got over 45 master's and PhD degrees. We not only have people from Notre Dame and IU and Purdue and Michigan State and the others, but IUSB has been a great feeder program for us, particularly in our software area.
Fantastic.
The other part is beyond those college degrees is what we have found is there's other places that people are getting great technology training who add massive value. And that becomes particularly in the U.S. military. We've got 3 branches represented in our security team, which they do a great job. And our technician team, we have a lot of folks from Ivy Tech who are growing through and getting certifications and moving up. And so we serve customers, all around the country. And as we're preparing for what's coming, what's coming here is the AI boom. I mean, it is real. It is real. It is coming. It is here in many ways, things that we're already starting to develop and deliver on that. And so as we look at our next phase of where we're going, it is going to be imperative. I mean, the amount of servers and compute and storage and things that we need to be able to position for the future is one thing. But the other part is AI right now has really benefited the biggest of the big tech companies. I mean, that's who's gotten the benefit from it.
Okay.
We firmly believe those organizations that I mentioned before, the healthcare, RV dealers and RV manufacturers in Elkhart, the financial institutions, they are all going to need to be involved in AI. And if they don't have they can't just go buy the software. They're going to need the data scientists, the data engineers, the things that we do to be able to deliver solutions in that area as a service. And that's where we're excited about our next phase of growth, because we're focused on that layer that many of the other people aren't.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And I had a follow-up question on that because
Sure.
I was curious whether or not you at Aunalytics provide sort of the backbone for that work, or if you're more on the forefront of the kinds of development that needs to happen around AI for our local businesses.
Yeah. We want to be on the forefront. So what we talk about is being the analytics advisors in many ways. So we're not expecting that our customers right now are thinking about generative AI and how that's going to affect them. That's what they're looking for us to do in many cases.
Okay.
And so what we ended up doing, because of the nature, so we have a full platform that is our proprietary. OnSite is the name of it. It's a software platform that we have spent millions and millions of dollars investing and continue to invest in. That, part of our original view was, oh my gosh, we'll just have this software platform and we'll sell software as a service in addition to everything else. Well, What we've kind of found is we could give the software away for free, and we're not sure that people could get the value out of it, because the gap that we were saying that we were trying to solve 10 years ago exists even more in the data space right now.
Wow.
So what we end up providing is, Marty, is we do our AI and we call them intelligent data warehouses, where we give insights and actually an automated engagement system where what those insights are can connect to real actions. We provide all of that as a service. And so by that, I mean, our customers are trying to buy an answer to a business problem. I want to reduce churn. I want to engage with my customers more frequently. And to do that, you need hardware, software, a data engineer, compliance, security, overnight running, data scientists, machine learning, business analysts, UI developers, and we do it all end to end.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to jump in
Keep
there,
going.
but I want to
You're on a
ask
roll.
another question on that. So could you give us an example? So, I'm thinking about our listeners out here. Like, you're using a lot of words that sound interesting and intriguing, and some terms that maybe not everyone knows. But like, if I'm a medium-sized business here in South Bend or in Elkhart, like what can you give me like an example of something that Aunalytics would be able to build for me in that space that would benefit my business and help me stay competitive?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from a customer engagement standpoint.
Could be a generic story.
I'll just use a generic one, because customer engagement is something that we do with financial institutions, both banks and credit unions. We do it with call centers, whether it be in the manufacturing space or RV or product distribution. You're talking really high frequency transactions that are coming in every day. I'm getting lots of calls. I'm getting lots of tickets. I'm getting questions on any of these types of things. And there's two things you want to do. You want to take care of your customers as best you can, whether it's economic development, which is a whole nother conversation, or your own customers. There's a much better cost of growing what you have. I mean, you got to go get new, and you got to bring them in.
Sure.
But growing what you have is one of the best ways that you can do that. And so when you talk about transaction volume of data, number one is, what if I could just get the insight? So forget about any predictive outcome. What if I could just get the insight of what's going on with my customer today so that I can act on it, as opposed to waiting 4, 5, 6 issues and then the person's calling in with a huge problem. It is, I've gotten the insight today through the data that this is going on. It seems to be with this service or this system. I better look at this today. Or I'm getting that first indicator that this customer who's worth a certain amount to me had a bad customer service experience, as opposed to waiting for that to build or waiting for that to blow, getting that information to the right person in real time, where it's called and it's handled before they even have time to reach out to anybody else.
Right.
Now, when you start to get into predictive things around that, it is, I'm taking those daily insights and I'm running those into algorithms that have happened in the past, data that's happened in the past as well, and trying to predict what's going to happen in the future.
Sure.
So getting that daily list of insight of, based off all the transactions that have happened recently, who are my customers that are most likely to churn today? that have given signals, and those signals might be across 4 different systems. It might be that they put a complaint in on this system. It might be that they're late paying on a bill. It might be that they started to reduce a deposit. It might be in another system that they cut off one service from you. But when you add those points together, something's telling you it's going on here. Or what's the next best product to offer that person based off. So
got it. So you could develop this for a customer. Say I'm a small manufacturer. That would allow me to stay ahead
engage
of
better.
To engage better, stay ahead of my customers' problems faster.
Maybe
better.
know where you're starting to have a warranty issue before it blows up. I'm starting to have an issue with a supplier, and I've identified it before it becomes the big issue.
And the one other thing I would add to this, in the way that I've heard it talked about before, and we think about wanting to keep our region relevant. I think so much of this is already happening on the coast. And so it's not even so much a competitive differentiator at this point. It is making sure that we are keeping up so that the company that you mentioned before that used to live here doesn't happen again, right? Yeah. So what are the things that we need to be doing? So
I mean, that was on my mind too. Is this is amazing. Aunalytics feels like a scrappy, unexpected startup coming out of a region that was not meant to, or people wouldn't have guessed that it would birth such a thing. And yet it has happened here, and it's being competitive in this bigger marketplace. Yeah. Well, what does that competition look like?
Well, it's an interesting thing you say. I mean, there's
point here.
You look at the way the RV industry is owned by Elkhart County.
Yeah.
There is nothing in the water that makes that happen. There's not what they have done is there was some success early on that people replicated, suppliers locating next to manufacturers, locating next to service dealers, and they have continually made sure that they have a competitive moat now around this region, that we own it, we build them, we grow them, and this is going to continue to happen here for a very long time, and they're going to continue to reinvest in that. But there wasn't anything magical other than some visions and some commitment. And my gosh, now we have a great labor force for that. We have a great distribution ability, all those kinds of things. So when you go back to when we were saying, well, why not us? When you look at what's coming in this market of AI and technology, I mean, the platform and infrastructure that's needed here, when you're building for data, you need really strong power infrastructure. You need really strong fiber infrastructure. You can move. So the same way we distribute products on the highway system, you've got to be able to use fiber. All that's covered. Check. Great.
Okay.
We're in an emerging market. You need a vision. You need a vision of somebody that says, we can do this. We feel like we've been able to show we can do that. You then need the talent to be able to produce it. Well, we produce a whole lot of talent that comes into our region, whether it be to IUSB, Notre Dame, or other. We've got a lot of universities here that are emerging. And we've got a whole lot of very good school systems that are producing talented kids every day who might be going outside of our region to school, but got to give them a reason to come back. And guess what? We are giving them a reason to come back, not just with the work, but the work that has been done to make our region a better place to live and grow and play. And then you got to have committed partners. And by that, whether it's the financial institutions that bank you, the investors who might come on board, the expertise that you might have from your accounting or legal or others, we've got all that in our region.
Yeah.
I actually think we have a new tagline here. It's like, why not us? Why not here? Right? There's something to that because it's such a...
Well, and it's absolutely fantastic, because it is, I think it does go against that narrative that we were all being told 20 years ago about what our region was capable of. Yeah. And you're everything you've done in your vision just flies in the face of that narrative, which was false to begin with. Yeah. And you're proving it so through the work
and
that
you'll
you're
remember
doing.
Our conversation with the ViewRail team. Like we're not even going to talk about that, right? Because this is the place to be. This is the right time. So
Right. I love hearing it.
It is. It never gets old.
Nope.
Okay. Another question. What do you think happens next for Aunalytics?
Aunalytics is on a continued...
And what do you think that means for the region?
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So Aunalytics has had a vision since we started it that we wanted to create something of long-term value. Now, when we talk about value and growth, sometimes people think about that only in the term of dollars. Okay. Value means that we've created something that is worthwhile, that something is meaningful. That value obviously has a dollar value to it, but it's also, are we creating value for our customers and our community and the places that we've been? Are we creating job opportunities for people that are living and growing and working here? And my gosh, the joy we get out of people that we've hired before they were married, and now we see their kids and their families and setting up roots here is beyond measurable value to me. I mean, I take great pride in that part of it.
Rooted in reaching.
Right. Go ahead. And you talk about growth. Growth, sometimes people think about, I'm only growing in doubt. No, I'm growing in relationships. I'm growing in personal, capabilities. I'm growing in all of those things. And so we wanted to create something that there's a reason that we funded the business the way that we did. There were private equity folks, lining up to want to do stuff with us, but we knew how that game, was looking to end. We felt like from the beginning that Aunalytics could be a platform that could spearhead a lot of other growth opportunities for businesses in the region and businesses that didn't even exist. If we could figure out how to build a platform to be able to deliver technology solutions, be able to run IT, and be able to take data and make businesses more competitive, that's something that we felt like could scale, over and over and over, and something that could be long lasting, that could spur a lot of other things in the community. And so, we set out a goal. One of the things that we talked about was, could we have a public offering? Is that something that, we don't know if there's been many unicorn companies in our region in technology that have had an IPO and the reason that we would want to do that is to continue that control, for lack of a better term, to be able to stay true to the mission that we have, but also, get a return for some shareholders, and also be able to take some of those dollars to really reinvest. And when we talk about what we want to build, and we right now are we're located in South Bend. We've got 2 locations in Michigan. We've got a location in Ohio. We have a location in Mumbai, India. There's no reason. Again, we're not thinking, hey, can we be a nice company, out of South Bend? We want to be a great company out of South Bend and other locations. But there's no reason that we can't be the platform that services for large and mid-sized businesses in secondary markets, not just in the U.S., but in the world. I mean, we really feel like we have that kind of capability and those kinds of dreams and aspirations.
You're playing it very cool, but that's pretty exciting.
That's huge. That's huge.
It is exciting. I mean, we keep moving the bar up as we want to grow, and we want to do things. Now, it takes execution. It takes commitment. It takes there are things, like with any business. There, while we're proud of where we've been, we're excited about where we're going, but we're also looking every day at there's a lot of things we've got to get better at. Everybody is looking at that as they're continuing to grow, and so some of the things that we're looking to do is really work to make sure we're turning the things into measurable business value to where the ROIs are definitively there, because as we're establishing those, I don't think there's any question that our growth is going to be substantial.
Yeah.
What was your first entrepreneurial endeavor as a small person?
Yeah. So for me personally, I was fortunate. You talk about the community and the way I worked for a company in my early 20s called CMS Management Services in town. It was a spinoff out of Clark Equipment. That was an entrepreneurial tech kind of organization, and I learned a lot from the founders of that organization. And entrepreneurialism comes from there's a problem and solve it, and why not us? And sometimes they're good ideas, and sometimes they're not. But at this point, the problem was my wife and I were in our late 20s with a couple that was friends of ours, and there was really no breakfast restaurants in Granger. And we looked at Granger at the point in time, and friends were Susan and Brian Coulter, and we were looking at a franchise in this restaurant that we'd ate at in Indianapolis called The Peep. And so we were friends with the Tarners, who had South Bend Chocolate, and we had a piece of land picked out in Mishawaka, and we were going to franchise, and we're going to put this restaurant in. And the deal got pulled back because they said the farmer didn't want to sell the land because there was some crazy rumor that St. Joe Hospital was going to move to Mishawaka. And we were like, oh God, nobody's ever they're not leaving South Bend. But we ended up starting a breakfast restaurant in South Bend called Le Peep, and it was a franchise thing that we did right around, we opened it the day after my son, who's 22, was born, because I took breakfast up to my wife in the hospital. So that's how I know how long ago it was. But the quick little thing on that is you talk about entrepreneurialism. Number one, it was connecting with people in our region. I mean, when I look back at that, we're starting this thing on the side. We ended up bringing on a partner in that Peg Dalton, and we later sold it to her, and it became Peg's Restaurant downtown. That connection was through Tim Sexton, who we were both in our 20s, who Tim is a VP at Notre Dame now, and I met him through the chamber leadership program. We ended up the attorneys that we used were still people that we have. Our accountants were Krugel Lawton that still advised and worked with us. Brad Toothaker was who helped us find the land. And at that point in time, when we couldn't get the thing in Mishawaka, Leighton Plaza was just being built in downtown South Bend. And I mean, there was nothing open in downtown South Bend. It was a brand new building. South Bend Chocolate across the street wasn't even open on Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, you could walk down Michigan Street on the weekend and not see anything.
Bit of a ghost town.
And we got rent dirt cheap, and Brad helped with that vision, and the city did, and opened up, and it was pretty successful from day one. So it's something I look back on with pride on taking a leap. And to be honest with you, I view that, I talk about it as my MBA. That was where I learned, I learned a lot of things, good, bad, and indifferent about being an entrepreneur. And I learned that the restaurant business is a tough business, but
I'm sure it is.
But it's neat to see that it's still up and running, and Peg's doing a great job with it today.
So, on that point, what were some of the tough lessons you learned from that? Experience.
I would say a couple things is that you learn. I learned if you're going to be an entrepreneur, it can't be a side gig. So in this, I wasn't leaving my day job. I had another thing. This was an investment in the side. If you're really going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be in, because you may not realize how in you are. I mean, there was things like personal guarantees on bank loans that we had at that point in time, and I had this great picture of when we sold it to Peg, my wife, with a glass of wine in one hand and a fire pit, and burning our personal guarantee in the backyard. That is a great picture when you do that. But the things that you learn about entrepreneurialism is, sometimes people only see the end game. You have it early on. It's, hey, the customer was late on this payment, we're not getting paid this month. I mean, we did some of those things in the early days, where you skipped a payroll you made sure everybody else got paid, but hey, you got to skip this, and you have a personal guarantee. Those are things and commitments that you do when you believe in something. I mean, you're taking a risk, and you're putting your personal reputation out there, and you've also convinced people to believe in you. And
must have been scary at times.
Well, that to me at least, that never goes away. I say that because, and I think any entrepreneurs are this way. I feel such a, I don't know, it's pressure like, but I mean, like I said, we have 240 employees and families that are counting on opportunities and growth. And there's investors and people that have believed in us. And most importantly, there's customers who every single day are counting on us to keep their data and their systems up and available and safe. And that's why anytime, we're in a business and technology that expects perfection. Everything's supposed to be up and available all the time and running all the time. And so, you shoot for perfection and you settle for excellence, and days that you fall short, you try and look somebody in the eye and tell them why and how you're going to get better, and move on to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, we've heard this from other entrepreneurs too. A lot of a strong feeling of responsibility towards their vision and also towards their people.
1,000%. And a lot of talk about values and culture and how that, and it's so evident in how you talk about it. I know we're going to wrap up shortly, but I do have one other question. Just hearing the entrepreneurial story and how Aunalytics got started and Peg's, but where and how do you think you learned how to be a risk taker?
Boy, that is
And how did you convince your wife to go along with it?
Both of those are interesting questions. Interesting questions, because I would say, grew up in a very blue collar family that I mean, there was no risk. I mean, my dad was a plumber, my mom was a secretary. Okay. They weren't risk taking people because they just weren't in a position to be. I mean, they were just focused on, let's do the best we can for our kids, and they did a great job, and no complaints. Looking back there, I think that what I saw was there was something that attracted me to being in sales early in my career. Because I felt like, for lack of a better term, I could be in control of my income. You know what I mean? If I chose to work 60 hours or do this or do more, then I had chances to be rewarded for that. And maybe that was just it. And I think maybe the sports side of it, the keep score, you win, lose every day, and you go with that, attracted me to sales and attracted me to this. And then you say, from the spouse side of it, what I would say is, the earlier you start, the better. I mean, when we were deciding to start Aunalytics, I mean, we had a previous company that had gotten sold to a large publicly traded company. I was making good money. I, to be honest with you, didn't have that big of a pressure job, and the pitch was, tell me what you think on this, Marty. It was I can stay in this role as option A. Option B, I'm going to take about a $100,000 pay cut, and anything that we made on the previous business that we just did, we're going to roll into this new thing, because that's the only money that we're going to have to even pay us for the first year while we try and raise capital. And if we don't raise capital, I got to go find a job somewhere else. And we're going to do all this when the kids are 16, 13, and 10.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So
That's a lot.
it had some, sometimes your spouse has more faith in you than you do in yourself sometimes that you're admitting. So that was helpful in the process, to say the least.
Yeah, a lot of belief in yourself, and nice that your partner had that kind of faith in you too to go forward, and your whole family.
Absolutely, yeah. She never hesitated on it. Yeah.
You mentioned the sports. Were you a high school athlete, college athlete?
I don't like to. Yeah, I was at a different time. I went to Penn before it was Penn, and played football, basketball, and baseball there. So you could do that back then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about the competitive nature of that, like keeping score and
absolutely. Yeah. Firm believer in sports and the teamwork that it provides. You don't win individually. You don't lose individually. Are you willing to sacrifice, personal things for the greater good? Are you willing to be a part of something special? Those are all things that you can learn there. Was fortunate to play for Chris Giesman, who was a legendary coach at Penn, who has since retired, and learned a lot of things from him. But one of the better sayings that I've used in management that he had forever is what you take is what you'll get. And by that, I mean, most people, you have your natural star performers, but most people work to a certain acceptance level. And so, it was about having standards for how you're going to do things and how you're going to treat people and how you interact, and making sure that that's what the acceptable level is. And so you can learn a lot of things from sports.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've heard that a lot too. I mean, you see that a lot in entrepreneurship, actually. There's a lot of inspiration coming from people's, oftentimes sports experience or competitive experiences as youth that have inspired them going forward in their entrepreneurial work.
Yeah.
And rumor has it you've conveyed these lessons to other young athletes as well, isn't it?
Well, it was fun. That was one of the true joys of my kids playing sports, was getting to coach teams and being involved in their stuff. And, I made a cognizant decision that I knew I was going to be somebody who always worked a lot, but I was going to do it. I was going to be home for dinners. I was going to be home for their events. And if I needed to work then from, 8 to midnight or whatever, once they were in bed, that was my choice. And so it was very fortunate to have them have a great group of friends and some athletic success that has helped them in their lives. And so that's been a real good thing. And going through, you talk about we use the term foxhole a lot, and it's become something of, are they a foxhole person or not? Are they, is this person somebody who, when the going is really tough, and it doesn't mean you get along every day with somebody. It doesn't mean but it means that I value who you are. I value your thoughts. We may disagree passionately, but I want you in the foxhole together. And okay. We've had gentlemen, a guy named Tom Panazzo, who came from Illinois, who we had as another partner, who, I mean, a brilliant guy, designed and built, the whole data center here. And you talk about our region. I mean, he had no connection to South Bend, a Chicago guy through and through, who, as we're building this here and doing this, said, I want to move my family here. I want to end up sending my kids to school here and totally, set up roots in this community, just seeing what's going on. And it wasn't just the work here, it was all the other things that made this a great place to be.
Yeah. Interesting. So foxhole reference being kind of a military reference, right? Like if you're going to be stuck in a bad spot, I want to be with this other person.
I want to be with this other person. Yep.
Because I know if push comes to shove, they're going to have my back, and I'm going to have their back.
I absolutely do. And, it was funny. And thank you for explaining it, because I can remember I mentioned Dr. Chawla and Nitesh at Notre Dame. It mentioned to him, one time about being a foxhole person, and he finally said, "Okay, I've heard you say this. What are you talking about?"
He's probably thinking of
he did. He looked it up, and Nitesh knows now that he is a foxhole person. Okay. So he's in it with you.
Excellent. All right, last and final question, if that's okay with everybody.
Absolutely.
You are on record as being a sales guy. What's your pitch to the entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs of this region?
Great question.
That's all right. So there's lots of places that you can look to set up and you can work and try and build your business. But as I mentioned in the beginning, you need capital and you need customers. Okay. Here's what this region definitely do. They will support good ideas. If you have a good idea, number one, you can find the capital and you can find customers. Number two, you will find people that as you're trying to find out whether or not it's a good idea, who will tell you. There are so many people that I wouldn't want to start listing them because I'd miss somebody that helped us over the years, and it helped us with just advice and ideas and saying, have you considered this or have you thought about this? This region is willing to do that with people who built this region. I mean, there's people who, I mean, the work that Chris Murphy and those types of people have done with our, Harry Agarwal and Bob Wozni, the time that they give to us is unbelievable. And you can get that kind of advice in this region. The other thing is that you can fail in this region and not have it fail you. I mean, you can start, it's not too expensive to get started in something. And what we're getting better at is, the places that really do entrepreneurialism, hey, it's a fast fail, I'm going to start something else. Right. We're getting better at, hey, if that didn't work, I'm transitioning to something else, and supporting the entrepreneur in that way. So I think that you have access to talent, you have access to technology, you have access to advice, you have access to capital, and you have a region that really wants you to be successful and wants you to be here.
Yeah.
With that,
that's a great place to end.
We're sold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rich Carlton, thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Thank you for having me on.
Yes. Thanks, Rich.